Well, here comes the stick, folks. Here it is. You didn't like the carrots, did you? You didn't like de Blasio's burgers. You didn't want to take part in the vaccine lottos. I mean, they offered you the chance to win $1 million, and all you had to do was take your shot. A shot at $1 million, right? They gave you like fucking donuts, and you still said no. Well, fuck you too, because playtime's over, you brats. If you don't take this unapproved vax they whipped up in about, 4 months or so, you don't take that for a disease they still can't explain the origins of, then they're coming for your wallet. It's that simple. Houston goes first. The healthcare workers go first. That's right. All throughout 2020, it was all about celebrate our brave hospital workers. Lean outside your window real hard and clap for them as they walk on by. Clap, for they are the embodiment of science, and we worship the science. We love the science. We love our heroes. We love our doctors and nurses. Hug them, love them, but don't hug them because you're not allowed to hug them. Hug them from 6 feet away. Wave at them. Just wave at them. Actually, don't even go to hospital. If you got other shit going on, they're too busy trying to save lives. Don't go there to try to get them to save your life, okay? Shit. 2020 was all about the heroes, right? We love our heroes. And these guys were at the forefront of all of that, right? Respect them all. That was the thing. Respect them all. Well, 2021 says that if our heroes don't do what we say, fuck them. Fuck them all. 178 to start, but expect that trend to grow. What's happening in Houston, you say? Well, they suspended 178 workers without pay for 2 weeks. Now, if they're saying suspended, let's not kid ourselves. These folks are fired, okay? If any of them don't have, like an empty stomach in 2 weeks and swallow their pride and go get their shot, it just means that they're just being broken slowly. They're 2 weeks and then maybe another month and then maybe another month until you're desperate enough to come back or quit. That's what they're hoping will happen, is that these folks just quit or something. I don't know. You gotta admire on some level that, these are hospital workers and they probably could fake getting their vaccine cards. Hey Fred, I'll say I injected you, you say you injected me, we give each other our vaccine passes and we call it a day. I bet a lot of healthcare workers have done that, but these folks didn't even want to keep up the pretense, right? So on some level, respect for that. And now they're going to be arraigned and essentially put in front of the firing squad and taken out, because they're being characterized as anti-vaxxers who are somehow in the healthcare industry, who probably got all their vaxes in order to be healthcare professionals in the first place, but they don't want this one. This is the one where they draw the line, at least for now. They're saying, for the most part, hey, wait until this thing gets approved. That's not good enough for their employers, right? And this is in Texas, mind you. This has like the least strict COVID laws outside of Florida in the country. And they're going after these guys full tilt. And even Abbott's laws, I guess, can't prevent this from happening because it's like private network or whatever. Who the fuck knows? The unsettling thing about this, just like every other part of the horror show that's been going on for well over a year now, is how happy people are to see this. People are celebrating watching these healthcare professionals that they eulogized throughout all of last year. They're celebrating watching like 178 of them, and probably a hell of a lot more, because this is just one city, right? So it's probably a hell of a lot more. They're more than happy to get rid of any doctors who don't want to take this experimental vax, and they're using these fallacy-riddled analogies like, well, it's just the same as no shoes, no shirt, no service. You have the right as a business to demand that people put on clothes when they're coming into your house. Like in their heads, that's the exact same thing, right? Or they're just rolling this in with, all the other vaxes we talk about that these healthcare professionals have to get in order to become healthcare professionals and to get their licenses and everything else. You're required to be inoculated and be up to date with all your shots in order to be a healthcare professional. So these guys, clearly, to be in the position that they're in, don't really have a problem with vaccines. They just have a problem with this so-called vaccine. We keep calling it a vaccine even though it hasn't, earned the right to be called a vaccine, at least not yet. But these folks say, we're not getting this yet, and for this reason, they're getting starved out by their bosses. They'd have you believe that this vax is just the same as every other vax these folks took in their careers, except that, this one's only been around for about 8 months now, and the others don't usually involve experimental technology with no long-term studies. But other than that, totally the same, totally the same. I should be glad, though, that at least they're consistent with their, hero hypocrisy, for lack of a better term, because they've got all these old mantras that they shovel around and they throw in your face whenever they're trying to not have like a real discussion about things. So they just, they pull out these phrases from their ass and they throw them right at you. Yeah, right. The old mantras about thank you for your service, right? Celebrate the troops. Celebrate those who protect our freedoms by showering them with like these worn out slogans. And as soon as one of said troops pipes up and talks about a war crime or some other actual threat to our democracy, they resonate to either, shoot them or lock them up, whichever sends a clearer message. So the game is still the same. The stakes are just higher now. The nonsense brigade keeps getting stronger. Case in point, we've said for a while that this whole strategy they talk about how we have to hit 80 to 90%. This article says that the estimate for COVID-19 is that roughly 70 to 85% of the population will need to be vaccinated to reach the herd immunity threshold. That's what they said here. And, the number you hear getting bandied about quite a bit is 80%. We'll get to a story about that in just a little bit. However, we have known for a while that this makes absolutely no sense if you stop for a minute to realize that this is not the only country on Earth. 80% of the US or 80% of the UK or 90% of Israel or all these other success stories they keep trumping out, that is not, 80% of the at-risk population. You are talking about everybody. Everybody, okay? There are no considerations made that if this so-called vax campaign only works if you hit this magical 80%, I guess COVID's gonna show up to your city and say, oh, you got 79%, I'm gonna fuck you up. Oh no, you got 80%, I gotta get the hell out of here. Like COVID is this sentient being, right? And it knows to obey curfew laws and all this other shit. And this is just the latest. It's got a percentage threshold and it's gonna know that once you hit that, it's gonna leave you alone, but only in specific countries. Maybe, but obviously that doesn't work. The idea here is that you're going to have to vaccinate 80% of the world's population. Otherwise, this whole campaign is going to fail by their logic. So that means that this campaign is already dead in the water because that's never going to happen. You cannot, as a rational human being, expect to inoculate 80% of 8 billion people. That's how many people there are in the world, around 7.5 to 8 billion people. And you're telling me that you're gonna hit 80% of those? Okay, so that's about 6 billion? Let's start with the fact that about 6 billion people, period, don't have access to the internet. 7 billion or so don't even own a second pair of shoes because of that stat that says that, if you own 2 pairs of shoes, you're already richer than 95% of the world. Isn't that what they say? Right? A lot of those people can't even get more than 3 meals in a week because this is a fucked up planet and you're somehow gonna reach out to all the masses and deliver these pharma cocktails that most of the time have to be kept at sub-zero temperatures, and you're gonna take this out into the heart of sub-Saharan Africa, and you're gonna go traversing through the Mongolian jungles and in the Vietnam forests. You're gonna go and hack your way through the Amazon and deliver these vaccines to all these people. You're gonna go high and low, take it to all the people everywhere. You're gonna get them all. You're gonna get them all like they're Pokemon. And not only that, you're gonna get them twice because a lot of this stuff needs 2 doses, and you're gonna pull this off in about 2 years because after 2 years the variants will have probably become too strong and then you're back to square one or some level of that argument or some shit, right? Sure, okay. And we're also supposed to believe that if they pull off that miracle, our beloved, what can we call them, our coronizers are going to hit their sacred 80%, and they're going to be okay with having the remaining 20%, which is about like 2 billion people. They're okay with having 2 billion unvaccinated people in the world when they're out here telling us that these variants can spread amongst the hundreds or amongst thousands. But they're going to make peace with having 2 billion people out there who didn't get their 2 doses and maybe their annual boosters. That's the conclusion of whenever you take them literally when they say they're going to get to 70 to 85%. That's what that means. So obviously that's not going to happen. And on some level they know that, and they know that you know that, but that doesn't matter. Since that slice of logic throws a wrench into their whole campaign, it's now being discussed as a necessary requirement by the WHO before at least the UK can get their freedoms back. I mean, the UK, man, the UK, they've been taking it up the ass harder than just about anybody throughout this whole mess. They bent over so hard for all of this, and this statement that you see right here from The Sun, long way out, long way out. UK won't be safe from killer COVID variants until 80% of the world gets a jab. So saith the almighty WHO. This guy is basically announcing a permanent lockdown state, and that it's pretty much over in the UK. It's been over for a while, but now it's officially over.
High levels of vaccination coverage are the way out of this pandemic. Right now, it's not 100% clear from the data where the figure for vaccination coverage should be in order to fully affect transmission. But it's certainly, I'm looking at Sumia, my colleague Sumia, it was certainly north of 80% coverage to be in a position where you could be significantly affecting the risk of an imported case, potentially generating secondary cases or causing a cluster or an outbreak. So it does require quite high levels of vaccination, particularly in the context of more transmissible variants, to be on the safe side. So countries with very low incidence, with zero COVID or with low COVID situations, are going to have to, like every other country. And there is this sense that countries with very high incidence need the vaccine most urgently. Well, in one sense, they do need the vaccine most urgently because they have a disease that's pretty much out of control. But those countries who've put the effort in and who have really focused on keeping COVID at the lowest level, who have protected their population, they also need the vaccine as well, because they've managed to protect their populations, and now they have a very susceptible population, and they have equal right. And this is what the DG speaks about: equity. It's about ensuring that everyone is equally at risk in this. And it's not just related to the number of cases you have, it's related to the absolute risk to your population. And there are many situations where countries have kept disease at a very low level, and because of that success, have highly susceptible populations, and therefore they need vaccination just as much as countries who have higher incidence.
Holy shit, what a fucking bore! What a fucking bore! That does not sound like a one and done vaccine campaign to me. Like, you're losing all the time. He says you're fucked either way, whether there's COVID in your country or not, right? Whether you have a low infection rate and you've done a good job of keeping the infection down, well, you're still gonna need the vaccine, and you have it spreading all over the place, you're still gonna need the vaccine. You're gonna lose either way. I'm not sure Scotty Too Hottie here was supposed to say all of that so soon, because he just yanked out all of the goalposts and declared a permanent COVID state with endless restrictions. Like, his bosses are still out there trying to sell this as a gradual thing, right? They're still using a little bit of lube for their propaganda, con everyone into thinking this will be over soon. And here comes this guy, and he just rams it all in there bone dry. No beating about the bush, no bullshit. He's saying whether you're okay and you don't have COVID or not, you are not getting out of this. I mean, should we welcome his honesty, or should we be terrified about how he basically represents the views of the people who now control large portions of the media and especially the internet? This guy, right here, this guy is part of the brain trust that dictates what you see on Google and YouTube and every other control platform. How fucked are we? This is the WHO. This is the WHO. They're Lord Almighty as far as anybody in the science community is concerned now, in the media community. This is their God. And he basically just told them, I don't care what you do. I don't care what you do. I don't care. You're fucked either way. Wow. And he was kind of cheerful as he said all that. I mean, my God, this is all so depressing. I could do with a pick-me-up. Ow! Oh! Take that, you hoe! Take that, you absolute hoe! That was a hoe slap! That was a hoe slap! Look at this! Check this out! Pow! That was a hoe slap right there! Homeboy was about to follow up with a backhand before Macron took off and let his security pretty much dry hump this guy into the barrier. Wow. Imagine if you could pay for the right to like slap your president across the face. Like, how much money would people pony up to get to do what that guy just did? Maybe you get to win a lotto, like a real lotto, not those vaccine lottos, but a real lotto where, you know, if you're the lucky one, you get to slap your leader right across the face. Just one good one. But it's all good, though. It's all good, folks. Slapper McGee here, as you can tell right from the still shots before this whole thing goes down, he's wearing his mask. So Macron's safe. He's not going to catch COVID again. It's all good, people. It's all good. Like, women, I gotta say, women have perfected the art of the slap, and he showed some real fine feminine flair there. I gotta give him that. So, what happens now? Is this gonna help Le President, oui, gain sympathy, endear him to the public? I hope not, really hope not. But it didn't take long to get to the heart of what's really going on here with slapping Macarena, okay? Apparently, and you can head on over to the BBC for this one, alright? And they did a little deep dive into the story, and lo and behold, they're gonna trudge out words like far right, and they're gonna throw in Hitler for a good measure, because why not, right? Song's been working so far, why, sing a different tune. If it's working, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So they're gonna go the white supremacy route. Maybe in time you're gonna find out like he's an anti-vaxxer or whatever the fuck, And just take a quick glance here at one of these side stories. From Air Force One to Beast, how Biden gets around. Oh my god, this man's son snorts coke off of a stripper's tailbone, but they want to cover what sort of wheels he rides in? This is journalism in 2021. Whatever. This Macron story, it furthers the propaganda and the overall stranglehold the state have on the people, regardless of whatever country it's happening in, right? Much like the so-called Capitol riots that this Macron slap incident is basically plagiarizing, where, nobody really gets hurt, but they make it sound like, we're dealing with this new age of terrorists and all this shit, white domestic terrorists, right? So the story they're trying to plagiarize and get everybody to get hooked on this narrative, they want you to essentially feel bad and feel intimidated and feel scared and, oh my god, what's happening to our society? We're all crumbling when things like this can happen to our beloved leaders. No, fuck these people. I enjoyed watching that. I enjoyed it just as much as I enjoyed the people hiding under their desks when the Trumpsters went walking into the Capitol. Not storming in, just walked right in for the most part. Whatever. Those are the kind of stories that they would have you, look at and in sheer terror and, oh my god, what is happening to us? And of course they use that to pass all these obsessive, obscene laws that are just going to give them more and more power. And really the end result is the same, because their power grows whether they have these incidents or not. So at least from my standpoint, I get to watch something that puts a smile on my face, even if it's just for a little while. I enjoy the heck out of watching these buffoon overlords get taken down a peg, okay? And sure, it's the president of France, and you'd think a guy who likes to stick his macaroni inside a woman that's old enough to be his grandma would be immune from embarrassment, but luckily for us, that is not the case. Speaking of grandmas, okay, AOC, you gotta love this woman. AOC stuck her head in the stupid blender this last week by, I guess, trying to coax sympathy for her abuela, who's living in absolute squalor in Puerto Rico right now, thanks to Trump or something. She's like, somehow she's managed to tie this back to a guy who's not even president anymore. And in the middle of all that, she forgot that she's a highly, highly, highly paid government official with an army of dunces at her back who would gladly throw money at literally anything she tells them to. But she let her grandma live without a roof. Or at least I think that's what's going on here. Just take a blow-up image here. Check this out. Like, look at the roof, and is this a bucket to shit in? Like, what the hell's going on here? Jesus Christ! Like, I mean, what is all this? Seriously. I mean, she couldn't say that this was just some other random person's house that she knows, like an old friend or distant relative or something like that. It had to be direct family of one of the top fundraisers in the country. She's probably like maybe top 3 fundraisers in the company, and she lets her family live like this. And not only that, but she decided to announce this to the whole world about pretty much what a piece of shit she is. I mean, this is the sort of thing, like, years ago, like the opposition would have released about her. Like someone she was running against would have had someone take this picture of her grandma's house and say, look at how AOC lets her own family live. But she did this to herself. This is probably the greatest example of a self-own that I've seen in American politics for quite some time. She torpedoed herself. I mean, what a hack. What an absolute hack. Work on your bullshit, Sandy. You suck at this, just like the others. This is embarrassing. She told us this. She decided this was a good idea to tell everybody. Oh my God. Oh my God. But fortunately for us, and maybe not so fortunate for her, we can only be described as alleged right-wing trolls decided to get the best of her. Check this out, okay? Conservative writers GoFundMe for Ocasio-Cortez's grandma raises over $60,000. They could have raised a lot more, according to this guy who started this this troll fundraising campaign. They could have probably cracked 100K, and this was just within a few hours, right? Like everyone jumped on the bandwagon of this thing to make her look as shitty as she made her look herself. But these so-called trolls started a GoFundMe for Granny Goodness that Miss Cortez immediately killed on the spot because I guess fuck grandma after all. Like, how do you wrap your head around this? Like, she told the world what was going on, someone out there decided to help, and she killed it right on the spot. Yeah, okay, sure, they're doing it tongue-in-cheek, but, you know, just take their money. I mean, my gosh, take the money. It's money. You don't have to tell Abuela where the money came from or the people out there. Just take it and go and help. Go and spend it yourself on another, I don't know, what did she draw, like a Tesla or something is what they were saying. Go buy another Tesla. Just take their money. But no, she said no. She couldn't even run with a joke and like throw it back in their faces. She had to turn it down and then took some weird moral high ground and all this nonsense. And if you make your way over to the Hill, you're going to find out that there's a fair amount of overwhelming support for her, just like there is at the Hill. Like, I am convinced that these are mostly just bots. Like, look at this first comment about how AOC lives rent-free in the minds of incels everywhere, and everybody's agreeing with it, and all this stuff. I mean, like, these are the people who would have happily thrown all the money she wanted at her abuela if she just asked them to, but apparently not. And now that she's put an end to that, what can we call it other than gag, Matt Walsh is gonna have to figure out some other way to troll her. But if this is the kind of crap she's releasing about herself, then I assume there's gonna be plenty of opportunities in the future. That said, on a more serious note, this woman is on track to become the fucking president someday. Like, fuck me sideways. We're in big trouble. She is somehow the most powerful young politician in America today. Ay. That aside, What better way to cap off today than with some naked pride? This year's Philly Naked Bike Ride requires face mask and nothing else. So I suppose I should say almost fully naked, because you see, these naked people who like to be naked in front of other people won't be fully naked anymore because they have to wear masks to take part in their naked parade. The nudists have drawn a line in the sand as to what counts as decent or indecent as it relates to articles of clothing around your body, only it's not where you'd expect. You see, you can, out in Philly, you can wave your Philly cheesesteak. You can wave that in the wind and spread your cornhole to anyone on the street, but you cannot show your nose or your mouth because that would be far too revealing. What a crazy time to be alive. Oh, Philly. Oh, Texas. Oh, UK. Oh, France. Oh, world. The whole world. Man, forget about the Tokyo Olympics, okay? The stupid Olympics aren't getting canceled anytime soon. In fact, there's a hell of a lot more gold medals to dish out. Oh!